Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. I am all the way from Chicago. Well, it looks like it's sunny outside, but let's see how long that is going to last. So, this morning, I am going to be going over breadcrumbs, and I am going to be able to show you how to find some of the best answers for some of the possibly long vignettes that you might see on your exam. I have to thank Diane Gehart for this because she is the one that initially taught me how to do this. And every practice question that I use, even on the exam, I use breadcrumbs, which is also known as the highlighting features. So each of my slides that I am going to show you are going to be highlighted, whether if it's going to be green, red, or yellow, and I will explain it along the way once I do find out what the rationale is for each of the questions. So let's get started. Now, this first question, it's pretty long, but don't be scared. You will have long vignettes like this on the exam. So get used to it. Start the highlighting. Look for the ones that stick out like a sore thumb. And then we're just going to pace our way through this first question. So starting off, this question says there's a 35-year-old man. He's been in therapy for 9 months. So let's put emphasis on that, 9 months. And pay attention to that. That's almost a year that he has been in therapy, right? He came to therapy to address his struggles with depression, suicidal ideation, and substance use. So he's had some issues going on, but he's been in therapy for 9 long months. He has a history of emotional trauma, including the death of his father at a very young age. He's been coping with the abuse from his parents. So he's, like I said, this guy has got a lot going on, and there's a lot of information that is being presented. Over the course of therapy, he has made substantial progress. Pay attention to that. It says he's made progress, right? Reducing the frequency and the intensity of his suicidal thoughts and significantly reducing his alcohol consumption. He's made some progress, which means that he's probably completed some of his goals, right? He's recently expressed that he feels much better and is ready to terminate therapy. We can honor that, right? When our clients say, hey, I'm ready to terminate, you collaborate with them and you move on, right? He acknowledges that he still has some difficulty with relationships and coping with his grief, but believes that now he has the tools to manage them on his own, which means that he's learned some coping skills while he's been in therapy, and he's been in therapy for 9 months. So keep that in mind. The therapist is concerned, though, as there are still some unresolved issues in his grief and the process in his occasional lapses in his emotional regulation, particularly in situations for relational stress. Okay, so now the therapist has some concerns. And now at this point, your best thing is to collaborate with your client on, is it really time to terminate? So the question says, what is the best course of action for the therapist? They're asking about the therapist, right? What is the best course of action for the therapist, considering his readiness for termination and his remaining unresolved issues? So in that question, it's definitely telling you, go back and look at the vignette, and there's some information there that is going to lead you to your answer. So we got some responses here. Take a look at the responses. And then on the next slide, I am going to go through why each of these responses, are either incorrect, partially correct, because keep in mind, if part of the answer is incorrect, the entire answer is wrong. Diane Gehart also taught me that. So let's look at this. Now, don't be too frightened by this. It's just lighting up in green. The green that's up there in the vignette is everything that is going to match you to find your answer in your responses. And I walked you through all of the ones that are highlighted to let you know what is important. But also take again, look at that question. Highlight what that question is asking you. Best course of action. And also the readiness for termination and the remaining unresolved issues. A says to terminate. Why are we terminating? He has unresolved issues. Yes, he believes that he feels better, but he can't terminate because he still has issues that are still remaining. B says, honor his desire to terminate therapy. Yeah, we do that, right? As therapists, we do honor that. But it says schedule a final session to review coping strategies. He has some coping strategies, he has some skills, but there are some unresolved issues that are still remaining, right? C says discuss his concerns, evaluate whether he is ready for termination. That right there tells me that, hey, I'm collaborating with my client. We're going to discuss those unresolved issues that he still has and how we're going to move forward with it, right? D says terminate therapy. It's absurd. You can't terminate because the vignette has already said that he still has some unresolved issues. So when it comes to questions like these, especially particularly some of these long ones, follow the breadcrumbs. They will lead you to your answer. Make sense of these questions. Just as like I walked my way through this question, walk your way through each of the questions and make it make sense. Let's do another one. This one, a young woman, full student, local university, comes to see you. She's complaining about anxiety. She's getting good grades in her classes, but she has a lot of test taking anxiety, and she cannot even do her homework because her heart rate shoots up and she feels faint. Okay, so right there, that tells me already, girl, I can't do nothing for you because you can't faint in my office, because if you faint in my office, then what am I supposed to do? Right? So when we see that, highlight it. Those are like indicators something else is possibly going wrong. So the question says, what should you do? Take a look at the responses. Some of these are absurd. Some of these are funny. I make light of these questions because it's like, even when it came to the exam, I was laughing at the exam. Look at the answers. So B says, call a doctor and prescribe Miltown. What doctor are you calling? There's no diagnosis. Like, you don't have a diagnosis, so why am I calling a doctor? C says, treat her depression. Who said anything about depression? I didn't see anything about depression written in this vignette. I see she's got some anxiety going on, but there's no depression. So automatically incorrect. Immediately call her parents. Why are we calling her parents? Now we telling her business. Like honestly, like, why are we calling her parents? Like, there's no need to be calling her parents, telling her business or whatever. We still have to have that confidentiality piece correct. A says refer her for a medical evaluation, right? She had anxiety. Her heart rate is shooting up. We are not medical doctors. We need to make sure there's not another underlying condition, right? Because if you faint in my office, the only thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to call 911 and the ambulance is taking you away. Now, this next one, your client is 15, physically disabled. Both of his parents work outside of the home. He takes the bus to school. It's kind of unfortunate, but okay. He's getting bullied at the bus stop, right? He tells you that his parents can't drive this poor kid to school. Like, good Lord, you can't take this kid to school. He's physically disabled. How would you assess his safety? Now, pay attention to what this question is asking you. They're asking you how you are going to assess this situation. How are you going to assess your client's safety? Take a look at those answer responses. And as weird and as absurd as they may sound, you will get questions like this on the exam. So let's take a look at this. The poor kid is physically disabled, which means what? Can he really protect himself? Probably not, right? He takes the bus to and from school because his parents apparently can't take him. Their jobs are just too much for them to take their own physically disabled kid to school. Good Lord. A says locate another bus stop. How is that assessing his safety? He's physically disabled. Like, you see if you can assess him to another bus stop. Is there a chance that he's going to be bullied at the other bus stop? The bus stop is mentioned in the vignette, but the rest of that answer is incorrect in A. C says suggest that he finds a peer to wait at the bus stop with him. That's not an assessment. That's not you assessing him for safety. That's you trying to put a Band-Aid over the situation by having a peer stand there with him, right? D said, ask him if he thinks it will escalate into aggressive bullying. For the love of God, yes, it possibly can, but he's physically disabled. His parents can't take him for whatever reason. This kid needs help. You need to assess the situation. Yes, it might turn into more aggressive bullying, but you have to ask direct questions about the nature of it. What are they doing to him? Are they name calling? Are they picking at him? Are they kicking him? Are they hitting him? Are they being aggressive towards him? That's how you are going to assess the client's safety in this vignette. Pay close attention to that final little area of those questions, because that's going to lead you to finding the best answer. Now, let's take a look at this one. A family comes in with concerns when a child has changed. Okay, so in this vignette, we have some quotation marks. Pay attention to the words that are written in the quotation marks. Do not ignore them. They will possibly lead you to your correct answer. The parents say that the child has become shut down and jumpy. So we got some symptoms going on, but deny any known trauma. This is from the family. The family is saying they deny trauma, right? The child avoids eye contact, monosyllabic, and withdraws when asked about school. So right there, that tells me that there's something going on with school. And he possibly has experienced a trauma situation at school. So what should the therapist focus on first? And I love these first questions because the first questions, you put them in order of most important, right? So you don't ever look at, when you see a first question or whatever, don't go for the one where it's like, oh, the less thing to do. You can't do that. It has to be the most important thing that you are going to do. Take a look at the responses. Okay? Now, and those responses that you have, see if you can find like which one is going to match what is written in those quotation marks that is written in the vignette. Right? So here we go, right here, right? We need to find the most important factors presented in this vignette. I posted this in my group, so I saw a lot of people choosing the answer A. Avoid questions that mention individuals, but do not always pick because it says family without having enough supporting information, right? So A says assess for underlying family dynamics. We can do that, but we can't do that first because in the quotation marks, there's something that's happened. Something is going on. Explore the child's internalized beliefs. We can, but not first. It's not important, right? D says develop a family genogram to gather history. You can, but why are we doing that first when we first need to assess for some type of traumatic event that has occurred when the symptoms presented in the vignette tells us that some form of trauma has happened? Even though the family is saying, oh, there's no trauma, but as a therapist, we need to find out if it is. And it's clear that the boy becomes withdrawn when you're talking about school. So maybe the family doesn't know about any traumatic events because the kid is too afraid to talk about it. It is our job to find that out, right? That is why C is the best answer. Pay attention to what's in quotation marks. Do not ignore what is in quotation marks. It could be something very important that will lead you to finding the best answer. Now, you're working with a culturally diverse family. The therapist noticed that one member resists emotional vulnerability, citing cultural values around strength and privacy. The most appropriate intervention. Now, this question is very vague. You don't have a lot of information here, right? So what are we going to take from this? And these type of questions here, I've learned that I can still find the best answer to these questions just by doing breadcrumbs and matching the words from the vignette that is in the answer responses, because there's nothing really much that you have to work with here, right? But let's take a look at it. And I have, this is the correct, so the correct answer is B. We're going to be using a client's cultural values as a framework for alternative expressions of emotions. But then let's take a look at the breadcrumbs and how I found it. So here I have culturally diverse family. I have that highlighted because this is a cultural question, right? It's got to do with culturals, right? And then I also highlighted resist emotional vulnerability, citing cultural values again. So again, you got that cultural piece that is being presented there. A says to gently challenge the resistance. If we challenge, that means that the client shouldn't feel that way. So you can't do that. Nothing in the vignette is talking about challenging anything, so stay away from it, right? B says focus on the more emotionally expressive members to model openness. Now, in B, emotionally is mentioned because we got some emotions in the vignette. But now we just about to ignore everybody else and just ignore this one person and pay attention to everybody else. That doesn't sound right to me, right? D says reframe the client's resistance. We have some resistance. You can tell from the vignette that there is some resistance as avoidance that's rooted in family trauma. Ain't nothing mentioned in this vignette about no trauma, so don't be looking for that answer. Stay away from the answers that has nothing to do with the vignette. Don't assume. When you assume, you're going to get the wrong answer, okay? Ain't nothing in there about trauma. Stay away from it. B says use cultural values as a framework for our alternative expressions of emotions. B includes everything that's up there in that vignette. The only one that is close to what it's talking about in the vignette. The rest of them don't make any sense. They are outliers. Don't add to the vignette. Don't assume. Use what you have in a question and find the best answer. Now, a therapist is considering terminating with a client who has made progress but recently experienced a job loss. Okay, so now we're in therapy, right? They want us to terminate, but then something else happens, right? The client is now feeling discouraged but continues to use coping skills. What should the therapist do? Now, again, this is not a lot of information in this vignette. You don't have a lot. Some questions are going to be like this and some questions are not. But take a look at those answer responses. Some of these answer responses are just like short and straight, to the point, that are just like absurd and just doesn't make any sense. But if you slow down, think about it, work your way through these answer responses, you will definitely find the correct answer. And I'm going to show you how. So the correct answer is going to be acknowledge the setback, reassess goals, and support the client's autonomy. Because remember what I said, when it comes to termination and creating goals, you collaborate with the client. But then at the same time, you still have to give that client autonomy and support them. They had a setback, which was the job loss, right? But they had a job loss, which means that this client possibly could be struggling with a crisis right about now. So you won't just immediately terminate. So here we go. The therapist is considering terminating with a client who made progress but recently got a job loss. A says restart the entire treatment process. Why on earth would we do this when he has major progress? He has a setback. He ain't a new client. It doesn't say how long you've been working with him, but clearly since he's completed his goals, you must have been working with him for a while. We're not starting over. That's a bit much, right? B says delay termination indefinitely. No, we're not delaying termination indefinitely. You still have to give the client autonomy, right? While working with them on a setback, you can still be working through that, but we're not going to delay termination indefinitely. Termination was mentioned in the vignette, but the rest of the answer is incorrect, right? D says, refer the client to a vocational counseling. First of all, now we just about to abandon the client by giving them to somebody else. Just end it, right? Forget about the client's livelihood and everything that just happened, and just send them to a vocational place or wherever you just plan to send them to. You can't do that. It's absurd. Doesn't make any sense. C says acknowledge the setback, reassess goals, and support. That's all you have to do. Reassess, acknowledge the setback, and move on. Simple as this little vignette is, sometimes finding these answer responses are even more simpler if we slow down, read the question, and read for understanding. Alrighty, so the next one says, oh wait, we finished. Alrighty. So I got these practice questions from Quizlet.com. You can just go on and just search MFT practice questions, MFT theories, MFT National Exam. Many practice questions are going to pop up. There's a plethora of them on there. I've used ChatGPT before as well, but I have to constantly read to check the validity of it, and just be like, okay, well, I see what they did here, I see what they did there, or whatever. Sometimes if I do that, it kind of makes more sense to me. Study.com is also a good app to use. It's a good website to use as well. Go in and search MFT National Exam curriculum. There are some parts on YouTube. Search it up and use that to study. They also provide practice questions as well. But yes, there is so many different ways that you can find some of these practice questions. I know there are a lot of people that post a lot of PDF practice questions that you can download and that you can use. So just get on the internet, start looking at some of these questions, dissecting these questions, looking for the breadcrumbs, studying the questions, studying the rationales, making sure you know which type of question it is that you're looking at. Slow down, read for understanding, pay attention to the last little key to some of those questions at the end. They will lead you to your best answer. Okay, now this is the message that I am giving to some of my future LMFTs. Yesterday in my group, we got the May test taker scores back, and I think I had a total of 12 that has passed. 12 that has passed, that has been working with me, that has been in my group. I've been telling everybody, I'm not going to stop. I want the regulatory board to be so upset and mad. We are doing one-time payments for this exam. Pass it on the first try, one and done, right? This exam does not define you. It is a milestone that you are temporarily attempting to cross. You will cross it. You know these models. You studied these interventions, ethics, DSM-5. Trust in the knowledge you have gained. You know this stuff. Trust yourself. Pace yourself. Read each question carefully. Eliminate the wrong answers. I've worked with people and they're just like, well, but tell your butts to butt out. We don't have room for buts, because 9 times out of 10, that first answer that you're thinking about is the correct answer. Don't worry about how many you missed in this presentation that I did. It's okay. Every opportunity is a learning opportunity. Every challenge that you reach is a learning opportunity for you. This exam, it's tough for most, but you are so much bigger than that. You are so much tougher than this exam. I believe in each and every one of you. Please take what you've learned from this. I will do more of these. Please leave a comment in down below and let me know if there is a question that you would like for me to do the breadcrumbs to, or if there's a question that you're struggling with. Let me know which one it is, and I can maybe work through it with you so we can figure out how to answer those questions. Tomorrow I will drop a video for how to answer first questions, the first questions, how to answer those. We will hit the ground running with it that way, but we got this. We are going to get through this. I believe in each and every one of you. Let me know. Oh, there was something else. God, the song for the day is "You Are More Than Able," Maverick City. Elevation Music. Look it up. Listen to it today. Let me know how you think about it. And then we will move from there. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.